left is actually very good at this. Say what you will about it. They'll give you a vision of race, gender, sexuality, climate. And we've been sitting here criticizing that vision, but without offering an actual alternative vision of our own. What do we actually stand for? What does it mean to be a Republican in the year 2024? Really, the question we ought to be asking is, what does it mean to be an American in the year 2024? And we lack a good answer to that question today. And to me, I think it means we believe in the ideals of 1776. That's what we need to revive in this country. That's what this campaign is about. I think that's what this election is all about, is answering what it means to be a citizen of this nation. To me, it means we believe in those American revolutionary ideals. Ideals like merit, that you do get ahead in this country, not on the color of your skin, but on the content of your character and your contributions. That's why I've said we're going to end race-based affirmative action and group quota systems in every area of American life. It has been a cancer on our national soul, and we are done with it. That's where the DEI agenda comes from, that pervades so many of our institutions today. As our next commander-in-chief, I will end the woke indoctrination in our U.S. military apologizing for who we are. We are done with it. It means we believe in the rule of law. And I say this as the kid of legal immigrants to this country. That means your first act of entering this country cannot break the law. And that is why I've said we will use our own military to secure our own southern border and our northern border too. That's what it means to stand for the rule of law in the United States of America. It means that the people we elect to run the government ought to be the ones who actually run the government. That's the one war I promise I will wage as your next president. It isn't some pointless foreign war abroad. It is the war on our own shadow government right here at home in the United States. You want to drain the swamp? Here's how I'm going to do it. Starting office on day one, 75% mass firing of the number of federal bureaucrats in that D.C. bureaucracy. That's how you drain the swamp. Shut down government agencies that should no longer exist. From the FBI to the ATF to the CDC to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission to the U.S. Department of Education. We're not just going to reform it anymore. We're going to get in there and shut it down. That's how you revive the integrity of a constitutional republic. I won't start with last year's budget as the baseline, which is based on the prior year's budget before that, which is based on the year before's budget. All of them are broken and corrupt. That's how you get a $34 trillion national debt problem. I'm going to start with zero as the baseline and ask what's actually necessary. That's what we need in this country, is zero-based budgeting. That's how we fight that national debt. That's how we actually drive change for the generation of our kids that should not bear that national debt on their shoulders. It takes a CEO in the White House to get this job done. This isn't controversial. This is common sense. Now, to do this in this country, we do need elections we can trust and believe in. You're not supposed to talk about this one, but it's what we need to deliver for this country. Elections we can trust. I'll deliver single-day voting on Election Day as a national holiday that can be unified with paper ballots, government-issued voter ID to match the voter file, and yes, English as the sole language that appears on a ballot. That's not too much to ask. These are not black ideas or white ideas. These aren't even really Democrat ideas or Republican ideas. They shouldn't be. These are American ideals that we fought a revolution to secure in this country. And I believe deep in my heart that those ideals still exist. I am running for president to revive them. It's the creed of this country on the back of every one of our coins. It says, E pluribus unum. It means from many, one. That's the spirit we've lost in this country. We've been taught to celebrate our diversity and our differences so much that we forgot all of the ways that we are the same as Americans, bound by that common set of ideals. And here's how we're going to get it back. It's going to be by all of us, not just me. All of us starting to speak the truth in the open again. Say in public what you will say in private at the dinner table. Say it with a spine. Say it with conviction. Say it with respect. But part of respect is that you respect your neighbor enough to tell him what you actually think. And you see, that's what this campaign is about. Speaking the truth, not just when it's easy, but when it's hard. Speaking the truth, not just to the Democrats on the other side, but to our own party, our own side of the Republican Party, when necessary too. And there's a reason why I'm the only person in this race who can even tell you certain things. That I'm against that carbon capture pipeline, the CO2 pipeline, making its way across the other half of the state, using eminent domain to effectively steal the land of innocent farmers. That it's based on a climate change agenda that absolutely is a hoax, because it has nothing to do with the climate. To tell you that I will strip vaccine manufacturers of special liability exemptions that only apply to vaccine manufacturers. That's crony capitalism. It's unjust, and where there's injury, there needs to be justice. The only person who can tell you that Ronna McDaniel needs to resign after 5 failed years of leadership of our own party right here at home. The only person to tell you, I'm not just going to reform the FBI by replacing Christopher Wray or giving him a new building or whatever. I'm the only person who's told you, and I will do it, we're going to actually shut it down. The only person who tells you that I will pardon on day one every peaceful January 6th protester, because that's the right thing to do for this country, to stand for the rule of law. I want you to ask yourself, why am I the only candidate who's able to tell you these things? It's because our politics has become corrupt. Every politician anymore is dancing to the tune of their biggest donor. And in my case, that biggest donor is me. I do not report to them, I report to you, the citizens of this country, not another one. Frankly, I would rather speak the truth and lose this election than to play some fake game of political snakes and ladders. But my bet is that's going to be the winning strategy. And that decision doesn't belong to me, it belongs to you, the citizens of this country, the people of this state in Iowa. Iowa goes first for a reason. We're able to have conversations like this one. There's no social media algorithms distorting what I'm telling you on this road, I promise you that. There's no TV screens between us. We're having an open conversation amongst fellow citizens. And it's not just going to be some president coming from on high from the White House to save us. It doesn't work that way. It's not the spiritual realm I'm talking about. I'm talking about the civic realm that we're in right now. If we're going to be saved, it is going to be because we save ourselves. And so I'm going to do my part, but I'm asking you all to do yours. January 15th is the Iowa caucus. I'm asking you to take 30 minutes of your time to save this country. Not just to select the next president. That's important, and I'm asking you to caucus for me. But I'm also asking you to participate in the process that sets the platform of this party. That too is important. Every one of us has to play our part in this, but if you all do your part, I promise you, my wife Apoorva and I and our family, we are going to do ours to make sure, not in this fake politician way you often hear, but in a true way, to make sure that our country's best days are actually still ahead of us. That we don't have to be this nation in decline. That we still can be a nation in our ascent. And at every step of the way, we're going to speak the truth unsparingly to you. God is real. There are 2 genders. Fossil fuels are a requirement for human prosperity. Reverse racism is racism. An open border is not a border. Parents determine the education of their children. The nuclear family, it isn't a bad word. It is the best known form of governance known to mankind. Capitalism isn't something we need to apologize for. It's still the best system we have to lift us up from poverty. There are 3 branches of government in the United States, not 4. In the U.S. Constitution, it is the strongest and greatest guarantor of freedom in human history. That is the truth. We fight for the truth. We stand up for the truth in this country. That is what won us the American Revolution. That is what reunited us after the Civil War. That is what won us 2 world wars in the Cold War. That is what still gives hope to the free world. And if we can revive that dream over group identity and victimhood and grievance, then nobody in the world, not a nation, not a corporation, not a virus, not China, is going to defeat us. That is what American exceptionalism is all about. And that is what we are going to revive to save this great country. So I thank you for taking the time. I'm excited to take the questions from you all. We're going to open up the lines. Press 1 to caucus for me. That's what I'm asking you to do, is to caucus for me on January 15th. And it is up to me to earn your vote. I'm going to sit across the table from Xi Jinping in about 18 months so I can handle the hard questions from our own voters. Star 3 to ask me a question. Let's open the lines and let's make this happen.
Live Tele-Townhall with presidential candidate Vivek hit 1 on your keypad to caucus for Vivek. And right now, if you want to ask Vivek a question, just hit star 3. And then at the end of our Tele-Townhall, please stay on the line with us for the entire duration. You're going to be automatically entered into a drawing to win a signed copy of Vivek's first book. That's Vivek. Vivek, as we're getting callers in, I want to kick it off by asking a question about the carbon pipeline. It's so near and dear this issue to all people in Iowa. What is your position on the carbon pipeline in Iowa and why?
Well, I'll tell you, I'm dead set against the carbon capture pipeline because it is using eminent domain, which is unconstitutional for something that is literally unnecessary. So Iowa law says you can only use eminent domain if it is necessary. That's the key word, necessary. Well, you know what? Right now, it's not. And if you assume that it's necessary to remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, so much so that you can build a pipeline that seizes the land of innocent farmers who don't want that in their backyard, then if you can use it for that, you can use it for anything. Tomorrow they're going to use it to take your gas stove, to take your combustion engine vehicle, your car, frankly your cow. All of those release carbon dioxide or methane. And so if that justification that this is necessary to use eminent domain to get carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere to put it in a pipeline can work, they can use it for anything. The Supreme Court also currently, I believe, believes that eminent domain is only reserved for public use. I think the current Supreme Court agrees 6-3 with me on that. This is not a public use, it's a private company doing it. But I do want to say that I'm the only major Republican candidate who's had the spine to say it. And it's because our politics has been corrupted by the special interests. I'm equal opportunity when it comes to offering criticism to Republicans and Democrats alike. And this shouldn't be a partisan issue. I don't favor the electric vehicle subsidies. I don't have a problem with you buying an electric vehicle, but I don't expect you to have me pay for it via taxpayer subsidy. Well, in the same way, I don't think these taxpayer subsidies should be used to pay private companies to capture carbon dioxide from the atmosphere to bury it in the ground. To what end? It's based on false pretenses. This climate change agenda is absolutely a hoax. 8 times as many people died last year of cold temperatures rather than warm ones. You want to know what the greatest actual risk is that we face? It's not the rise of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Carbon dioxide is plant food. Crops require carbon dioxide to actually grow. The earth is more covered by green surface area today than it was just 100 years ago. And so what the real risk is that we face is this anti-carbon agenda that's causing actually more people to die and suffer from lack of access to affordable energy, both in the United States and around the world. This has become a cult, a quasi-religious cult around the world, self-flogging, teaching you to wear a hair shirt, apologizing for our modern way of life and who we are. Well, you know what? We're going to put an end to that carbon capture and carbon dioxide cult, anti-carbon dioxide cult in this country. It takes a president who's willing to stand for the truth. And again, I want you to ask yourself why the other candidates in this race, and why, frankly, even most Republicans in this state, haven't had the spine to stand up to it. Citizens across the state are against it, but the people in the establishment are not. That tells you a lot about how broken our politics is. I don't report to that donor class. I report to you, the citizens of this country, and I'm not going to apologize for doing the right thing.
And don't forget, hit star 3 right now, star 3 on your phone to ask the big question, and then hit the number 1 on your keypad if you care to caucus for Vivek. We're here on the phone lines right now. Matthew is on the live line. Matthew, you're on live with Vivek Ramaswamy. Matthew, please ask Vivek your question.
Hi, Vivek. This is Matt, and I would like to know if there is a policy that can be put in place to put consumers back in control of their own health care costs. I believe the free market system is broken between us being able to influence the cost of our own health care, and do you have any ideas or policies that can be put in place to put consumers back in charge of the cost of health care?
Yeah, well, look, I thank you for that question. I would say that we live in the worst of all worlds right now. We have the worst of socialist medicine And we have the worst of capitalist medicine, because right now we have a system that's not actually offering us either. I understand this, actually. I'll tell you a little bit about my own background. Our family understands this from two different angles. My first company was actually a biotech company that challenged Big Pharma, which I believe takes too darn long and costs too darn much to develop a new medicine. The system in some ways creates that by design, and that's what drives up the cost of prescription drugs in this country, insulating Big Pharma companies from competition. My wife, Apurva, she is a throat surgeon at the cancer hospital at Ohio State. She saves lives on a daily basis. She's a hero, and I think this country should be proud to have, I hope, a first lady who sets a good example for young women and women in this country, a doctor who treats patients while she's in the White House. But I'll tell you what we see in the healthcare system. It isn't a healthcare system. It is a sick care system. In Apurva's case, she does throat surgeries on people who, in many cases, have not swallowed food for years after they've had throat cancer. Well, we have a healthcare system, or a sick care system, as I'll call it, that'll pay for all kinds of expensive pill-pushing behaviors. It'll pay for feeding tubes or other interventions, but often does not pay for the very kind of procedures that allow those patients to live better lives. That doesn't make sense. In Apurva's case, she does many of those procedures without herself getting paid. Thankfully, that works for our family, because this country has allowed us to live an American dream that my parents never imagined when they came to this country 40 years ago. But it doesn't work system-wide across the system in our country. So, number one is we have to end the lobbying, and I'll tell you why. There's two examples I'm going to give you. Big Pharma has effectively lobbied for heightened barriers to bring new medicines to market, because that's what allows them to charge monopoly prices without competition. We need more competition in the marketplace for insulin, for basically every class of drugs. As somebody who personally oversaw the development of 5 medicines that are FDA approved today, one of them is a life-saving therapy in kids. What do we see is that we could have developed those medicines for a tiny fraction of the cost, but we couldn't because Big Pharma wants it to be the way that it is. The other sector in healthcare that's lobbied is the health insurance industry for special antitrust exemptions that don't apply to other industries but do apply to health insurance companies. They're able to then coordinate with each other. That increases the cost of healthcare and reduces the scope of coverage. They don't cover basic mental health care, basic forms of actual promoting health, as opposed to treating sickness on the back end with a lot of pill-pushing behaviors and worse. So that's what we have, a sick care system, not a healthcare system. You want to get to the root cause of this, end the lobbying and end the corruption. If we have a competitive private health insurance marketplace, an actual competitive pharmaceutical industry, that brings down both healthcare costs and pharmaceutical costs. And you're right, that's not capitalism, that is crony capitalism. It's the perversion of our political process for the existing incumbents to use the extra money they have to block out competition using government as a basis to do it. That ends on my watch. 75% reduction across the board. That includes at CMS and FDA and across the federal bureaucracy. But we're also going to end the crony corruption. I will ban anybody from lobbying the government for at least 10 years after they've left the government. Ban congressmen and bureaucrats from trading individual stocks while they're in office. They shouldn't be doing it. You should be joining the board of a company after you've been a regulator of that industry. It's wrong when the Democrats do it. It's wrong when Republicans do it. End the corruption. That's a big part of how we lay the groundwork for a much more sensible healthcare system rather than the sick care system we have. And both in Apurva's case, my wife's case, and I, we bring some knowledge to this. And I would say a personal passion to this. I think this is one of the most underappreciated issues that candidates aren't talking about, is actual healthcare in this country. And I think it's going to take a president who understands it and can actually cut through the bureaucracy and understands the details to get this right, and we will. So thank you for that question. I'm grateful to you for it.
And to answer Vivek Ramaswamy question, is hit star 3 on your phone right now. Star 3. Your caucus for Vivek is number 1 on your keypad. And please stay with us for the duration of this live Tele-Townhall, and you're going to be automatically entered and we're going to ban a signed copy of this first full peek. James is up next on the live line, and James actually wanted to talk about the bigger picture of lobbying. And James, you are on live with Vivek Ramaswamy. James, please ask Vivek your question.
It sounds great to say that we're going to ban them from lobbying, but actually, how do you do it? How do you stop people from trading stocks internally and banning the lobbying
Yes.
for 10 years? How do you physically do that?
Well, it's a great question, and the challenge with doing this is that the very people who have to vote for this policy to ban trading of stocks, to ban of Congress, of individual stocks for congressmen and bureaucrats, to ban lobbying, to, for my purpose, also have term limits. 3 terms for congressmen, 2 terms for senators. The dilemma, which you're basically alluding to, which I like, it's a great question, is the very people who have to vote for those policies are the people whose behaviors are the problem in the first place. They have to vote against their own interests. So it's a very fair question. How am I going to be able to do that as the next president? Here's the answer. I'm a businessman. I'm not a politician. I believe in working within the broken incentives that people already have. So I don't love the answer I'm about to give you, but it's the truthful answer, and it's how we're going to get it done. I will tell Congress that we will grandfather in the people who are already there. Okay, so it's not going to apply to you. These term limits and these bans, they don't apply to you. But they will apply to whoever comes after you, whoever unseats you, or whoever after you retire fills your seat. And then something wild is going to happen. These people are going to vote for it up and down because 80% of this country or more supports the policies I just shared with you. I mean, these are wildly popular amongst the general public. Usually people might do what is required of their voter base, but they don't do it because they're the cartel in both parties that want to actually get cut in on the rake for themselves. And so if you take their self-interest out of it, it's amazing how things change. That's how we're going to do it in Congress. Now, in the executive branch of the government, the deep state, right? That's what you call the swamp. That's what you call the deep state. In that case, I get to do that as your next president without asking Congress for permission or for forgiveness. Because as the leader of the executive branch, I run the executive branch. I've been a CEO before. I know that if somebody works for you and you can't fire them, that means they don't work for you. It means you work for them because you're responsible for what they do without any authority to actually change it. And I refuse to be that puppet, that hollowed out husk of a puppet sitting in the White House. That's what we have right now. I don't sit here bashing Joe Biden on the campaign trail, largely because I don't see the point of it. He's not even really the president. He's a puppet for the managerial class, the permanent state that's propping him up. And so one thing I do get to do as your next president is end the rot and end the corruption in that permanent state. You ask mechanically, how am I going to fix that? 75% mass firing across the board. I order that as the next president because the president runs the executive branch. 8-year term limits for the bureaucrats. Yes, I can do that because if I can't work for you as your next president for more than 8 years, which is a good thing, neither should those federal bureaucrats who are reporting into me either. 8-year term limits for the bureaucracy. That's how you drain the swamp. So those are 2 categories for you, sir. One is, how am I going to do it for the bureaucracy? I do that as the president who leads the executive branch. I get to do that as long as you elect me and put me there. And for Congress, unfortunately, we do need the votes of Congress to do it. But the way I'm going to do it is use their selfish, broken self-interest in our favor by saying that it won't apply to them, of the people who are already there, but it will apply to anybody who comes after them. And I am confident that's how we get it done. And I think this is going to take a president who both comes from the outside, who has sharp elbows as a businessman, able to get things done. But the reality is, it's also going to take a president who knows and deeply understands the law and the Constitution in this country. And I don't think those things usually go together. Right? On one hand, you might have the businessman with sharp elbows who's going to come in like a bull in a china shop, break glass, get things done. And I'm happy to be that person. I can do that. Trump brought that. I definitely bring that on steroids. But it's also going to take somebody who deeply understands the Constitution, and that might be a legal academic. Well, that person doesn't have the business skills or the executive skills to get it done. But I think it takes both of those skills. And my faith teaches me God gives each of us our own unique God-given gifts. Every one of us has them. It is our job, it is our moral duty to use those God-given gifts to do what is right in the short time that we're given. And so I'm going to use the gifts that I have to do what's right. I think that's what it's going to take in the next president. But I'm going to rely on each of you to play your part as well. A lot of this requires the electorate also waking up to not electing corrupt politicians and putting them there either. Right now, I think we've become also a nation of sheep. And a nation of sheep is what breeds a government of wolves. So it's not all going to be top down. I'm going to do my part. But, sir, I'm going to ask you to do yours as well. You've got other candidates running for U.S. president right now that stand to make money off the policies that they advocate for, like going to foreign wars in places like Ukraine with military contracting firms that they operate on the side. It's corrupt when Democrats do it. Frankly, it's corrupt when Republicans do it. You have Republicans in this primary that are guilty of that very sin. And so, yes, it's up to me to do my job as the next president, and I'm going to do my part, but it's also going to take exposing this problem so voters across this country don't keep electing these type of, frankly, in many cases, scoundrels to these roles. And both of those are going to be required to actually revive this country, and that is why I'm in this race. So thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
It's star 3 on your phone to ask Vivek Ramaswamy a question. Right now, star 3 to ask Vivek a question. Hit just 1 on your phone, and if you care to caucus for Vivek in Iowa, please stay on the line for the duration of our live Tele-Townhall. They may be automatically entered into a hearing win based on Tom Davis' first book, Woke Inc. We're going back to the live lines now, and our caller is Bobby. Bobby, you are online with Vivek Ramaswamy. Bobby, what is your question for Vivek?
Yeah, I support everything he's saying, but I need to have some more confidence in our military. Our military, like you said, is so weak. Our military is not becoming my son was discharged for not taking a couple of vaccines. He did 3 years and 6 months on a 4-year contract and a discharge, and he lost all his stuff. He needs restitution for that. I don't believe it's fair that he was kicked out of the military and then they go and they lift the mandate that he was standing in line and being discharged. The guy, his buddy, standing next to him, is about to be discharged too. They lifted it. His buddy got active. My son got kicked out. What are we going to do? How can we get some restitution for these people that just wanted to serve the country?
Yeah. So look, I think that the reality is this: what they did to the military in mandating the COVID vax, it was wrong, and it needs to be corrected for. Countless young men and women lost their jobs. In many cases, now we know for making the right decision for themselves, which was to resist the government's effort to mandate something that we now know was pushed out without enough forethought in the way that that was mandated. So I have said, and I think I'm the only presidential candidate to say this, I certainly stand by it. As the next commander-in-chief, people like your son, people across this country who lost their jobs in the U.S. military, they will have their positions reinstated with full back pay times 1.5x. That's what they deserve. When we've made a mistake, we deserve to have it rectified as the people. And one of the lessons we got to learn from that pandemic is, I would say there's 2 key lessons above all. Free speech and open debate, it applies most in times of so-called emergency. Not during the ordinary times, but during the time that they will tell you is a so-called emergency. If we had been allowed to debate those lockdowns, we wouldn't have had those lockdowns. If we had been allowed to debate the merits of the vaccine and the vaccine mandates, we would have never had those vaccine mandates. But the reason that we did was you were basically told to shut up, sit down, do as you're told. You're going to be censored. You'll be shut up on social media. You might even be at risk, literally, of losing your job, as so many men and women in the military did. Where's the apology from our own government? If we want to heal this country, unite this country, and move this country forward, it's going to require leaders who step up and say, I'm sorry about what we did. What we did was wrong. Here's what we knew. Here's the lies that were told to you by the government. Here's the actual truth. Here's our apology. Here's how we're going to rectify it with justice. Hold the lawbreakers accountable, the likes of Anthony Fauci or otherwise, if it is true that we were lied to about what we knew about the vaccines, that we were lied to about the origin of the pandemic, using our taxpayer money to fund gain-of-function research abroad to create a man-made virus in a lab that ultimately infects and kills millions around the world and shuts down an economy and then creates and uses as the basis to roll out a vaccine that kills or affects at least many more. Well, you know what? Those lawbreakers do need to be held accountable, and anybody who lost their job in the military will be reinstated and have full back pay 1.5 times over. And I think it's going to take leaders in this country, in the media, but I think even more importantly in the government, though I think it's going to take both, to look the American people in the eye and say, we lied to you, we're sorry for it, here's why it's never going to happen again, and I apologize, and we're going to rectify the wrongs that we committed. Until that, I don't think we have true healing in this country. And I'm not going to do that as your next president by just blaming the people who came before me. That's not leadership, because at the end of the day, if I'm your president, I don't get to choose the hand that I inherit. But as your president, on behalf of the people who led this country. Even if that wasn't me personally, I will apologize to the people of this country, the young men and women who served this country and who were thrown under the bus, treated wrongfully. In many ways, I would go so far as to call it abused by our own government. To try to have this vaccine shoved down their throats and into their bodies. The brave ones who actually resisted that deserve to be honored, not to be castigated in the way they are today. And I hope that answers your question, sir. Thank you.
And to caucus for debate in Iowa is number one on your phone, number one on your phone. Stick around this a little bit longer. You're going to be on that refrigerator trying to read a copy of Vivek's first book, signed copy, Book 8. You're going to continue with the live line, and David is on next with Vivek Ramaswamy. David, you are on live with Vivek. Please ask Vivek your question. Well, Vivek, I support your disbanding the FBI and the NRA for that matter, but the question about permanence. Let's hear you specifically like the bureaucratic frame that was institution.
Yes. So the answer here is, first of all, I want to tell you why I want to shut down the FBI. And then I'm going to tell you, to answer your question, how it does not come back into existence after I shut it down. The other Republicans, and some of them are good people, at least some of the other people running are good people in the race, can't say that for all. But even other candidates, I think, earnestly say that they will want to fire Christopher Wray. That's a myth. It's an illusion that that's going to do the first thing about it. Because you get James Comey 2.0 after that. If you have an 8-headed Hydra and you cut off just one of the heads, it's going to grow right back. You have to cut this at its core. That's what it's going to take to get this country back. The right answer is to shut it down. I'll actually give you an interesting book recommendation. And I promise it's not one of my books, although I wouldn't complain if you read those too. The book is actually a book called G-Man. It's not written by some Republican partisan. It's a study of the history of the FBI and J. Edgar Hoover. It's actually written by Beverly Gage. I don't think she's even, for all I know, she's not some conservative. But she's an academic who studied the history of this institution. It is rotten to its core from its very inception. And what you realize is this institution was made to be corrupt. The right answer is only shutting it down. There's 35,000 employees at the FBI. 20,000 of them are back office bureaucrats in the J. Edgar Hoover building. Think about that. They still call it the J. Edgar Hoover building. We're going to send them packing. They're going to go find honest work. That's how you gut the deep state. 15,000 of those employees are investigative agents, cops on the front lines. We're going to move them to the U.S. Marshals or to the DEA, both of which have been far more effective at fighting child sex trafficking rings or the fentanyl epidemic in this country. That's how we all at once improve effectiveness while also ending the corruption. Now, to your question, how do we ensure it doesn't come back? Well, you know what? The president has a one-way ratchet, the ability to shut things down. But if you're going to bring it back, you need to go all the way through Congress. So it takes a president who understands that. The law already says, it's the Presidential Reorganization Act of 1977, it says that under certain circumstances, the president can eliminate an agency if it is redundant. The president already has the ability to do it. As I told you, the DEA and the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network and the U.S. Marshals, they can get that job done. That renders the FBI itself redundant. That's my basis for shutting it down. But to bring it back, it would require a whole new law through Congress. So that's the answer. And it takes a president who understands that. Shutting it down is a one-way ratchet. Building it back up is a full process going through Congress. That's what I'm bringing to the table, and I'm hopeful that we're going to be able to drive. I mean, the only thing that's standing in the way of that happening is me winning this election, to be honest with you. We're going to start that process of shutting down the FBI on day one. So I have full confidence I'm going to be able to do it. The thing I need is for you all to put me there, and frankly, I'm asking you all directly to caucus for me on January 15th. You have an important role to play in reviving this country. That's what I'm asking you for. Every one of you caucus for me, and every one of you go out and bring 10 people to that caucus as well. Do your part for the country. And if you actually want somebody who's going to get in there and shut down the deep state, actually somebody who's going to speak truth to power, then vote for the one candidate who's actually speaking the truth to you. That's how we get this country back. That is what it's going to take. I give my predecessor Donald Trump immense credit for exposing that swamp. He rolled that log over, and we saw what crawled out. But I'm the one now bringing the pesticide. That is what it's going to take to get this job done. We're done talking about it. It's time for us to get the job done. I'm asking you to caucus for me. You can press 1 right now. That'll tell you he commits to caucus for me. That tells me a lot. It lifts us up, and I appreciate you all. But you all do your part, and I promise you, my family and I, we are going to do ours. That's how we get this right.
That's right. Hit the number 1 on your phone, and our team will touch base with you about caucusing.
Pulling over the
Okay,
bus.
let's get right back to the live line. And we have Joshua on the line next. Joshua, you are on line with Vivek Ramaswamy. Joshua, please ask Vivek your question.
Hi, how's it going? Long-time listener, first-time caller. I watched your CNN Iowa town hall, and I was watching on YouTube, 200,000 views and 1,000 likes, and then all of a sudden it was struck down. And I'm excited to see you doing your own with Tim Pool, your own town hall theater,
Yep.
your own town hall. I'm pretty excited for that. So and there's a level of they just kind of shadow banned it, took it down, and it was struck from YouTube, and I was trying to share it, and it was gone. And I'm looking for some clarification on what happened with that.
Yes, I'll just repeat the question so everybody understands it. What you're referring to, you were watching my CNN town hall on YouTube, and countless people said this. While they're watching it, it went black. They couldn't share it anymore. It got 200,000 views in a matter of hours. CNN, and I'll tell you, this is now exposing the rot of the media. I'm going to lift the curtain a little bit on this. People deserve to see what actually happened here. So CNN did a town hall with Ron DeSantis. They did one with me the night after. I think I gave some answers they disapproved of a little bit more, and talked about the truth of what happened on January 6th. Third rail topics that I think CNN's audience deserves to hear, but they didn't want them to hear. They cut off my town hall 5 minutes early to bring on a panel of experts to then re-educate their audience on how everything they'd heard was misinformation, when in fact it's absolutely grounded in fact. Then the next day, that town hall's up on our YouTube, got 200,000 views in a matter of hours. They called our campaign, threatened us with sending us a cease and desist, but also apparently it looks like worked with YouTube to have it taken down, blacking it out, at least in the meantime, blacking out that content. And that's dead wrong, because you don't know what? Nikki Haley's town hall with CNN, where, certain puppets say what the mainstream media is comfortable with them saying, the controllable candidates. Her YouTube and CNN town hall is up from months ago, 60,000 some odd views over many months. We got 200,000 views within hours, yet CNN actually had us be the ones who take that town hall down. That is unfair. It is wrong. It is election interference in this GOP primary, and I think that they're election interfering in the Iowa GOP caucus. The mainstream media, and it doesn't just include left-wing media, by the way, the corporate media is engaging in election interference in the GOP caucus, and it is wrong. But the good news is, today, unlike 10 years ago, we have alternative ways of people reaching directly. Actually, those of you who don't know, I'm actually on a bus on my way to Sioux City as we're taking this Tele-Townhall. I'm here with friends from our campaign. Pastor Mike Damastis is here with us. We got one of my colleagues here taping this and live streaming this on a number of social media platforms. And so my view is, let's just reach people directly, actually directly, without the mainstream media gatekeepers in between. And so on the same night that they're going to be doing that pathetic fake CNN debate, where two candidates recite pre-vetted talking points from their donors to a bunch of audiences of people who are controlled by what CNN thinks their audiences can and cannot hear, I'm going to be with Tim Pool doing a live audience show with a podcast directly reaching people across this country, and it's actually one of the top-rated podcasts, with a live studio audience of Iowa caucus goers in person. So this is how we win. The media wants to corrupt this process. The media wants to interfere with the Iowa caucus. We're not going to let them. We're going straight around them. And that's why I'm asking you. I'm the most censored candidate in this race. Even before this little incident, about a month ago, there was an independent nonprofit group that found I was the most censored candidate, and then Robert Kennedy, and then Donald Trump. But the reason they're censoring me or silencing me isn't because the things I'm saying are false. It's because they are true. And they're afraid of you hearing the truth. If you want to hear falsehood, turn on the mainstream media. They'll tell you about the Trump-Russia collusion hoax that never was. They'll tell you about the Hunter Biden laptop story being false on the eve of that last election. That the COVID-19 pandemic wasn't actually a man-made virus in a lab in Wuhan. That's what they'll tell you. They'll lie to you about the truth of what happened on January 6th, about how our money's being spent in Ukraine, about the Jeffrey Epstein client list. You go straight down the list. They're going to keep lying to you about what we know to be true. So the reason they're censoring me, the reason they're trying to silence me, is because the things I'm telling you are actually true. That's what frightens them. But they don't get to decide who runs this country. That doesn't belong to the mainstream media. It belongs to you, this people of this state. We start in Iowa. We're doing it this way for a reason. But it's up to us not to be a nation of sheep, a nation of followers. Again, that breeds a government of wolves. And so I'm in this to make sure that we don't let the other side win this war. We're in a war for the future of our country. It's not a war between black and white. It's not even a war between Democrat and Republican, really. It's a war between those of us who love the United States of America and a fringe minority who hates this country and what we stand for. And I'm in this to make sure that the other side doesn't win this war, that we the people do. That's my job as your next president. If you all do your job on January 15th, and that's what I'm asking you for, at that Iowa caucus, take 30 minutes of your time to save this country. I am asking for your vote at that Iowa caucus. If you're President 1 now, you commit to caucus for us, we're going to tell you exactly what you need to do. But if you do your part, my family and I, we are going to do ours to make sure that our kids still grow up in a country where they get ahead with their own hard work, their own commitment, their own dedication. And that, you know what, you are free to speak your minds at every step of the way. And one final word of truth I'll leave you all with before we part ways. This one's going to be hard. Hard to swallow. It's hard for me to say. But it's the truth. If you think they are going to let Donald J. Trump get anywhere near that White House again, I'm going to ask you to open your eyes and see the truth. This system, these people, they are so corrupt, but they have made it clear they will stop at nothing. And at this point, I mean nothing, to keep this man away from Washington, D.C. and the White House. They're leading us into a trap. Do not fall into that trap. They're selling us the rope today that they will use to hang us tomorrow. We cannot walk into that trap. Our America First agenda is bigger than one man. It doesn't belong to Trump, just as it doesn't belong to me. It belongs to you, the citizens of this country. It did not start in 2016. It started in 1776. And we owe it to our founding fathers and to this country to make sure we have another 250 years and then some left in our American journey. So do not walk into their trap. You're going to look back 12 months from now. We will. Are we going to say that we were shocked at what they did? Or are we going to say that we should have seen that coming? It's up to us to make sure we do the right thing. We love the man because he got this fight started, but it is now our job to finish it. And you've got the future of America First right here in this race. That's me, and I'm asking you to do the right thing, not for me, not for Trump, not for any other candidate, but for our country. That's why I'm asking you to caucus for me. So if you all do your part, yes, I promise you, we will do ours to make sure that our best days are still ahead of us, to make sure that we have another 250 years and then some still left, and to make sure that we revive this country that our founding fathers gave us. It is a 1776 moment that we live in. Let's revive those 1776 ideals, and it is going to take, just as it did when Thomas Jefferson was 33 years old and he signed that Declaration of Independence, I believe it is going to take somebody whose best days in life are still yet ahead. And I don't take that for granted, but I hope and pray they are. Somebody whose best days in life are still yet ahead. To see a country, to create a country whose best days are still yet ahead of itself. Thank you all for participating. We're going to do the drawing for that book, and we're going to hand it over to my colleague Stefan, who's going to tell you, just press 1, caucus for me, do the right thing on January 15th. And I think we are going to win the Iowa caucus. That's what my heart tells me. And when we win the Iowa caucus, I think I'm going to be your next president and lead our national revival. Thank you all. God bless you and your families, and may God bless our United States of America. All right, guys, on the social platforms, thanks for bearing with us on that. That was a little bit different. We're trying some different things on this campaign. I had a long bus ride. I'm on this bus for 3 hours. We got home at around midnight last night. You can see outside it's actually a little bit snowy, and the further north we get in Iowa, the snowier that it's going to get. And so we're making use of every minute we can. I'm with, you might have seen Pastor Mike Damastis and that. Mike, you want to come over and say hi to our followers here? We got Mike is here on the bus. We got Caroline right here on the bus. So we're doing everything we can as a team to make this work. Some of the events are going to be challenging today with the snow. Some candidates believe in hiding from the snow, but I think if you're going to hide from the snow, you're not ready for Xi Jinping. So we're keeping our events intact, and I don't care if it's 2 people who show up, and I don't care if it's 1,000. They got a snowstorm up there. Either way, we said we're going to be there. We're going to keep our word and keep it. Either way, though, we're doing our part, and I think we're going to win this Iowa caucus. We're trying every tool we can, so just give me feedback in the comments. Tell me if that was useful. I think we're going to try a different microphone next time. We'll put it on me, and so that way people can actually hear what the people are saying on that Tele-Townhall. But I actually thought it was pretty cool. Felt like I'm having a phone call with about 500 to 600 Iowans at the same time. We got limited time to the Iowa caucus, and I'm not going to stop until we're done at the end. There's an old saying a tennis coach taught me, you either win or you leave blood on the court. I don't think we're going to leave blood on the court because I think we're going to win. So with that, we're going to do this again and give us comments and let us know how you think that went. And if you thought that was interesting, we'll do it with better sound next time. And we're going to do another one of these Tele-Town halls, maybe a couple more from this bus as we go from town to town later today. So we'll see you guys.